So we've got a bunch of follow-up about the Vision Pro and a cheaper Vision Pro, which was a conversation we had on the last episode. Robert wrote in and said, a Vision product at the $500 price point is important for a bunch of reasons, but it all comes back to price elasticity of demand. The Vision is and will be an accessory product for a long time. That is how Apple designed it. They don't want it to replace anything. Normal consumers won't pay over $1,000 for an accessory to their $1,500 laptop to use software running on the laptop. This is like the HomePod all over again. I want to read this second thing because I think they kind of go together a little bit. Matt says, I have to disagree with quite a few aspects of your discussion about the Vision Pro, specifically around its job to be done and the price. Apple has said that the Vision Pro is the future of computing. At any point in the past 20 years, Apple's current vision of computing has cost anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. Given that, would you expect them to ever sell a $500 MacBook?
Well, so is it an accessory or is it a computer is part of the question here.
Indeed.
Yeah. I don't think I buy, given how they pitch it right now, I don't really buy that it is an accessory. I think that if it was priced as a $500 device, it would be probably considered more of an accessory. But I think that this is part of what Apple is grappling with is what is it? Where does it fit? They don't know. One rumor that I saw was that they were even considering maybe going back to the idea of having it be partially driven by an iPhone or a Mac in the low-cost version, which is bananas to me. But like that would certainly put it as firmly as an accessory. I think if it's the future of computing, then sure, it would cost a lot. The problem is the reality, which is the getting people to buy a Vision Pro as the future of computing. Right now, they're not going to do that. They're going to buy a laptop. They're not going to buy a Vision Pro. Like, oh, should I buy a laptop or a Vision Pro? The answer is going to be almost always a laptop, right? So how do you do this in the long run? How do you make this product something that has room to evolve over time and become whatever it needs to be? And I think one thing, what we were talking about last time is they need more users. They need this thing to have more activity in it. Otherwise, it will be hard for it to grow. So one of the reasons you build a cheaper product is because the lower that price is, the more people you'll get on board with it.
Yeah, I think it's like, I understand where both Robert and Matt are coming from, because you've got how is Apple talking about it and what are they actually doing with it? And those are actually different things. I think realistically, Vision Pro will be the future of computing in the way that the iPad was.
Yeah.
In the sense that for some people, for a large amount of people, it provides a good enough experience to be their primary computer, but it doesn't really replace en masse what came before it. And I think the Vision Pro will be a similar thing. So yes, you would ideally want to put it into the kind of the pricing bucket of an iPad, which would be around $1,500. We also got a selection of feedback across Mastodon and Threads and in the feedback form about the idea of, because I've said that I don't believe that $1,500 is really a good enough price still to make a meaningful difference for the Vision Pro, right? Like that was this price that we were talking about last week. That I'm not sure how much of a difference $1,500 is to $3,500. And a bunch of people wrote in to say, like, well, a laptop costs $1,500, but kind of my counterpoint to that is there's a lot of stuff on Mac OS. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a big inbuilt platform of apps and experiences that are known to work in that environment. Plus, there is all of the inbuilt social contract around using a laptop, right? Where, you could use all of your web apps inside of a Vision Pro, but you're going to do that at the office? Like, at the moment, I'm not really sure that the Vision Pro replaces it, and neither is there really enough of a unique software ecosystem, like enough of one to justify it. And I don't know if $1,500 as a price point would actually get there. So I want to actually read a quote from an article that you wrote kind of, I think, informed by the conversation we had last week, where you said
Absolutely.
Apple needs to invest more in getting developers to build their apps on Vision OS, and since the size of the near-term market opportunity sure won't, some other inducement, like maybe even money, might be a good idea. It's like, that's, I think, the thing of there needs to be more apps, and I don't know if a $1,500 Vision Pro is going to excite enough developers more than the $3,500 Vision
Right.
Pro. I think
And
what
there's a
Apple
chicken
needs
egg
to
problem.
do is actually give the developer kits that they seem to suggest they would give, and they seemingly never did in a large enough kind of. I don't think you gave enough of them out, basically, and I think that could be something that could make a difference. You need more applications. Maybe a way to do that is to give a bunch of developers free Vision Pros. Maybe that will encourage them enough to do it.
Right. It might not even need to be a public program. It could literally be approaching interesting app developers and saying, we see you haven't done anything with Vision Pro. We can get you one, please. And yeah, that would be a way. Apple Arcade is a way that you can drive some of this, because that's a place where Apple actually does pay developers essentially to do apps on their platform. I wonder, though, if there should be some more, maybe even behind the scenes deals made to induce other developers to actually make apps for the platform. And the idea here, and productivity apps, entertainment apps, the idea here really is that have this a few months into Vision Pro, it seems like the biggest challenge with Vision Pro is content, is, like you said, you need things on it. And the chicken egg problem is, for $1,500 as a user, I'll buy it for $1,500 maybe more readily than I'd buy it for $3,500. I mean, certainly that's the case, but you're still also coming up against what's on it. And so when we talk about Apple not doing much immersive video, and that there not being a lot of 3D video on there, and that there are not a lot of apps on there, and that even like apps, a lot of Apple's apps aren't on there, which is part of the problem here. But there's a broader problem too. If you're going to lean in on spatial computing, you really need apps to be there. If you're going to talk about entertainment, which they have talked about some, I think it's the best thing on it, they need more content there. And the other piece of this is they also need better game content, because that's content. Again, Apple and gaming, I know it's a complicated thing, but I'll tell you, the one thing that has sold VR headsets to people is games. Traditionally in this market, right? It emerged from games. And Apple, I think for some understandable reasons, when they launched the Vision Pro, they're like basically saying, no, we're not. Famously in their demo, or in their video when they introduced it, they said, look, here is an iPad game being played with a handheld controller in Vision Pro. That was their game story. And there are some games on the platform, but the problem is there's a whole class of games that was traditionally the best games for other VR headsets that are not on the platform. And again, I'm not saying, I understand why Apple released the Vision Pro with just hand tracking, and every other VR headset comes with handheld controllers, right? Or I don't know about every other. The Quest certainly does, right? Handheld controllers have a lot of advantages. There's precision. You don't even need to see your hands, because they have their own tracking in them. So it's very precise about where your hands are, and your hands are on controller buttons that you can use, and there's haptic feedback so that you get responses to what you do in space. And I understand why Apple didn't do that, because they're like, no, we have really great hand tracking, and they do. And I think as it was, somebody suggested to me last week, a little bit like forcing the original Mac out without arrow keys, because it was like, we want you to use the mouse. I think Apple wanted to say, this is not just a game platform, because at $3,500, it doesn't make sense as a game platform. And we're really proud of our hand tracking, and it's good for productivity. And every time I put on the Vision Pro, I still am so grateful that I don't have to do the thing I do with the Quest, where I have to not just put on the headset, but get the controllers and put them nearby, and then pick them up and make sure they've got their batteries in them, and then I'm good to go. In the Vision Pro, I just put it on, and then I can run the whole thing. And I know that the hand tracking has gotten better on the Quest. Quest 3's hand tracking is fine. It's not as good as Apple's. But the problem is that they're missing all of the titles, all of the software that could get ported to Vision Pro and be good, because they have decided to not either build optional hand controllers or build an API so that third parties can build hand controllers. And what I'm saying is I understand why Apple wanted to go out the door without them, but it would be a really quick win for the platform if there was an API or there were Apple hand controllers as an option so that you could bring a load of cool, fun, interesting games into the store. The ones that have been brought over, like the simulators, the job simulator and all that, are kind of wonky. The what was it? The Fruit Ninja one that they did, I think it's terrible. Like, I just can't do it. And I am coming from somebody who's used a Quest, and like, I know how good this should be, and it's not. And it's because, as good as Apple's hand tracking is, it's missing a bunch of things that make these games really good in terms of precision input from your movements and from pressing things, as well as having the haptics there. So like, this is one of those things where it's like Apple got a little. I understand why Apple's proud of its hand tracking, but it can't be dogmatic. I'm really reminded of the whole idea of the Apple Pencil, right? Remember, if you see a stylus, they blew it, right? The whole point of that was a touchscreen shouldn't have to have a stylus. It shouldn't be mandatory. Well, a VR headset shouldn't have to have hand controllers. Absolutely true, 100%.
Yep.
However, the Apple Pencil makes the iPad way better, and it's not a condemnation of the touch on the iPad. It's because there's certain things where you want a little more precision, and the ergonomics make more sense, and so optionally you can add the Apple Pencil. And if I'm looking at what they could do to Vision Pro as they're trying to get the price down to make it more valuable, allowing hand controllers to exist for the platform so that you get a bunch of games in there on top of your immersive video that is coming, right? It's coming, right? There's going to be more of that.
Always.
And more 3D video. And also, yes, productivity apps and all those things. Like, at this point, if you're in charge of Vision Pro, I feel like you need to be finding every possible way to sell a $1,500 headset by the end of next year. And that includes getting a bunch of those games. Like, they've got that relationship with ILM Interactive. They did What If. Well, could they get Vader Immortal to come over? That's a lightsaber game. You can't really do it without hand controllers. But, could they? I don't know what the contracts are with their other, with Meta or whatever, if there are limits on that. But like, porting a bunch of really great games, or even knocking them off in the case of things that are owned by Meta and aren't coming to the platform, it just seems like this needs to be Apple's prime motivation to keep this thing going and growing, which is, I know that they're playing the long game here, but they also need some signs of life and some progress in the next 18 months.
What about so if they did this, right, they were like, oh, you can come and play this game, but it requires hand controllers. Do you think that is a hurdle? Like, do you think that is a problem? Like, the requirement?
It's not ideal that it's not in every box, but I had a bunch of people write to me after I wrote this article saying it's actually exactly what happened with the Apple TV, where the Apple TV, they made it that every game that was on the Apple TV at the beginning, other than Guitar Hero, had to use the Siri remote.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
No. So I get it, but if Apple's not willing to put controllers in the box, and it's already a very expensive product, that's fine. I think they need to be good with the idea that there are a bunch of game experiences that get better if you unlock the third-party controller or the Apple controller that is an option. Apple has had no problem selling straps and selling puffy cases and selling optical inserts and other things for the Vision Pro. So why not sell some hand trackers you can boast about that you built, or you built for Belkin, or whatever. So I get it, right? It's not as clean as saying these games are available, because it's these games are available asterisk. But right now they're already having to tell the story of, well, this game plays a lot better if you pair a controller to it. Right? They literally had a paired third-party controller.
Has some games that only work with a controller.
For sure. Now.
currently.
now,
Like you
but they had
have
to get
have
over
like a proper controller, right? So like there
right.
just isn't anything else. It's like you need an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller or whatever to play like one of the NBA basketball games that they have in Apple Arcade or something like that.
Right.
So
Now,
yeah,
if they want to
it's
get
not unheard
creative
of.
and have it be 2 Pencil Pros that you
Oh
hold
my
in your
word.
hands,
Oh my
and they
word.
have haptic and they have position, like,
Mhm.
okay, we could talk about that. But I feel like they got to do something. And this is just, again, I'm not saying, oh no, the Apple Pencil or the Apple Pencil, the Vision Pro is doomed without hand controllers. That's not quite what I'm saying. I'm saying for momentum to be built with the Vision Pro, I think at this point, as you're going toward a $1,500, $1,000, whatever it is, lower cost version, you just gotta turn over the couch cushions and like look in there for anything that will motivate people to come to the platform. And some of it is video content, and some of it is apps, and motivating developers to be on the platform is part of the story.
Mhm.
And this to me seems like another quick win. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it looks like the amount of effort required to do it would probably get paid back by the amount of software you'd be able to put on your platform.
The Vision Pro is now available to buy in China, Hong Kong, Japan, and Singapore. And pre-orders are available for Australia, Canada, France, Germany, and the UK. So a lot of
Ooh.
people pointing this out on Threads and Mastodon that in the photos that Apple put in their newsroom piece for the Asian launches, all of the people using the devices were using the dual loop band, not the solo loop band for their demos. Mark Gurman has confirmed that this is actually an official change for comfort reasons with Apple Retail, that by and large, customers prefer, comfort-wise, the dual loop band rather than the solo loop band. Mark Gurman has also shared that Apple has changed the demo experience worldwide with this release. You can now, if you go in for a demo, rather than looking at stock photos or videos on the Vision Pro, you can send your own photos or videos to the device to look at those so you can get a more personal experience. And additionally, the retail employees are being told that if a user wants to spend more time with a specific part of the experience, they're being given more freedom to do so, to kind of go deep on, as they're calling it, on a particular app or part of Vision OS. So they're trying to do more, it seems.
Yeah, this goes back to our conversation about the ways that Apple Retail is adapting to selling the Vision Pro, right? Because we talked about how there was a perception that the can demo took too long, and they got, again, I go back to the inception of this product. Clearly, there were a bunch of, points, philosophical points that became kind of tent poles of this product, and the screen that faces out is one of them. Oh, we don't want to, we don't want to lose connection with this product, so we're going to put eyes on the front of it and all of that. One of them was, we're going to have a very particular way that we introduce this to people in retail stores, and we're going to have a whole script, and we're going to get everybody trained. And now they're reacting to it where, as we talked about a few weeks ago, they have shortened it up because they want to just like get it on everybody's head, because once you see it, you can be blown away by it. And so it's interesting for this report that also we will, find a way for you to see your photos and videos and be blown away by that, which is pretty great. So they're learning, right? They're learning.
Yep.
But when we talk about some of the technical stuff, when we talk about lack of hand controller option, or some of the other things they're doing, or trying to take things off of it, like that front face display, presumably to make a cheaper version, I think it's all the same, which is there were some very strong held beliefs about this product that I would say don't necessarily make sense, but I understand how they probably emerged from an ongoing internal conversation. And I don't want to be so reductive as to say there were a bunch of people who were like, as reports would suggest, Johnny Ive saying sort of like very highfalutin things about, oh, we don't want to cut people off, and they really need to understand it. And that's part of Apple's personality, is being that kind of like controlling and visionary and not necessarily as realistic as maybe they should be. And then reality hits.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's good to see Apple adapting and saying, oh yeah, maybe they should see their own photos, and maybe we can't do the full 30 minutes. And Also, maybe if they want to go a little longer, I mean, do you have 10 other people waiting to use the Vision Pro? Maybe let them play around a little bit longer if you're closing the sale here. So that all,
I think the longer somebody uses a Vision Pro, the more likely they are to buy one.
100%. 100% true. Yeah. I've been using mine more since the 2.0 beta came out.
Yeah.
I've written a bunch of articles on it.
Yep.
And
well,
like you, every time I...
Like when you're in
or,
it.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
And like you, I also find very much like once I'm in there, I kind of want to stay in there. So I'm like, what else can I do while I'm in here?
Yeah. I like play around, like, go to the App Store and stuff. I'm excited that now the UK is coming online soon. I'll be able to actually use my iCloud account, which will be great. Well, my App Store account, I should say. I also ordered a second solo band so I can do the solo top thing that everybody
You're gonna do solo
does.
top? All right. It's
good.
I really like it. For those who don't know, there's a little 3D printed adapter you can buy on like Etsy or whatever, and you put another one of those adjustable solo bands on the top. So you're creating a dual strap out of two of the adjustable bands. A bunch of us have done that, and it's really nice. I understand why Apple didn't want to do it because it probably costs a lot of money, and I'm guessing that number one thing that will be the case in the lower priced Vision Pro next year will be they'll just use the cheap dual band. I mean, the cheap dual band seems to... Yeah, and that's another case where I think that 3D knitted band was very kind of over-engineered and very precious and beautiful, and then people use it and they're like, I need something more, and they're like, all right, we made this dual strap thing for you, and then you'll have to buy a nice strap.
There are some weird ways they could get the price down, right? It could be like, all right, this is the starting price. It includes one band and no battery. You can plug it in, right, and keep to power, or you can buy a battery if you want to be mobile with it. There is a bunch of weird ways they could get that starting price down, but it would degrade the experience, but that might be what they need to do if they want to kind of get that price down.
Get more people out there.